If you'd like to watch videos earlier than they're available on YouTube or have more of a direct say in what I do here on the channel, consider checking out my Patreon, where for $5 you can help support this channel and get all of that and more, or snag yourself some Archaic King merch on my Spreadshirt account. Link as always in the description below. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. I've always been meaning to do more reviews of video games based on cartoons ever since my last one, but alas, it just didn't work out. Well, luckily, I recently got my hands on this, gem, and I'm going to tell you about my experiences with the Ben 10 Reboot's first official video game. Developed by Outright Games, the same folks behind that one Adventure Time game I covered maybe a year or so ago, the new Ben 10 game is pretty much what you'd expect. In this game, you progress through various levels, pounding away at enemies with all 10 of Ben's aliens. Each alien has their strengths, and according to the loading screens, are better against certain types of enemies, though I never explicitly saw any evidence of this. There's quite a bit of variety thanks to Ben 10's aliens, as there should be, but you can also upgrade each alien 3 times in order to make the most of their abilities. Speaking of, you have 3 methods of attack. The regular attack, an alien ability that ranges from forearms, picking enemies up and throwing them, to accelerate, briefly slowing down time the longer you hold the button, and allowing you to attack and knock down enemies, and an ultimate. Now don't get too excited. It's not the ultimate alien forms we saw in the later sequels of Ben 10. No. In this game, your ultimate is basically one giant attack that will usually wipe the screen of enemies. You'll build this meter up by attacking enemies, countering attacks, and so on. You don't really need to use it sparingly, as you'll get plenty of chances to rebuild it. From what I've experienced, the combat never gets too boring thanks to the variety in aliens, and the game is easy enough that you won't have too much trouble unless you go up against a bunch of tough enemies with a wrong alien. But again, I managed to make do with whatever my go-to fave was at the time. As far as levels go, this is sort of where things become a little underwhelming. Going into this game, I was under the idea that the game was 8 hours long. That's not a bad length, and while it certainly could be longer, I figured that meant there was some meat to this game. But instead, the game only has 3 bosses and 6 levels. You can beat the game in about 2 hours or so. I suppose for who this game may be marketed to, that's not a bad runtime, but for the older Ben 10 fan, you may be left disappointed at how little there is to do in this game. There are 2 levels per boss. The city and the funhouse are Zombozos, the scrapyard and the hive are queen bees, and the final 2 levels are the weatherheads. There isn't much to the levels themselves, aside from some basic platforming sequences, a few places you need a specific alien to advance, and 3 hidden sumo cards. Outside of these cards, the levels hold no replayability, and they're generally so sparse you won't want to return to them later on. The sumo cards are the only collectibles in the game, and collecting them all will unlock Big Head mode. Yup, that mode you thought died 2 generations ago makes a return in this game. It's silly and unexpected, but not really worth collecting the cards for. Though I guess we're lucky it's only 3 cards per level and they're not too hard to find, though some will require a certain alien to gain access to. So if you want to replay through the game with all the characters with big heads, then go ahead and make sure to collect these. The real bit of variety in terms of levels would really be the boss fights afterwards, which take place in custom arenas suited for each boss. There's only 3 of these, which is a bit sad considering the amount of foes at the developer's disposal. I can only imagine this game must have been in development before the show was finished. Otherwise, what reason will they have for just 3 bosses in a Ben 10 title? Then again, there's 6 levels and the game is 2 hours long, so in what world would this take that long to develop? Zombozo as the first boss is obviously easy. Just avoid his traps and punch whatever blinking button appears. Easy peasy. Queen Bee is a little harder to avoid her attacks, that or it's just me, but a window of attack will appear every time she lands. So, Yeah. The only boss I had a hard time beating was the final one, and that's just because I had a difficult time avoiding the various attacks he'd dish out. If this game weren't for little kids, and there weren't any lives or game overs, I can imagine I would have to restart that fight numerous times. After you complete the game, that's it. Unless you missed some cards or really want to get all the trophies, there's no other reason to continue to play the game. There's not much replayability that I can see. As my first Ben 10 game, it's all rather disappointingly average. However, for a game that's modeled after a reboot I dislike, it's not as eye-gouging as I expected. I mean, graphically, it could look better or take better advantage of the current-gen console's powers, but it's not ugly, and the cel-shaded style suits it nice. The voice actors reprise their role and capture the tone of the show pretty accurately. The only other disappointing element is the story is non-existent. Each set of levels act almost like a typical 11-minute episode of the show. Hell, there's a trophy requiring you beat each level in under 15 minutes for crying out loud. Just without any of the thin plot you'd find in all of that. So that's a bit of a bummer. I may hate the show, but even I'd have preferred some sort of structure tying all the levels together. But nope. Just a bunch of standalone episodes, which seems to be a running trend, as the same can be said of Outright Games' previous Cartoon Network game, Adventure Time. So, honestly, in conclusion, I'd give this game maybe a 6.5 or a 7 out of 10. It's not a bad game. It looks good, runs fairly well, despite a dangerously bad glitch in the canyon level that makes me have to quit the game to fix it, and isn't that much of a chore to complete. It's certainly something that little kids will likely have some fun with. However, if you're an older fan, I wouldn't really recommend this unless you're just dying of curiosity. There's no compelling story to hold you over, and the game is just way too short and not that in-depth. If you do get it on sale. I can't suggest it otherwise. And that's all I have to say on Ben 10. Have any of you played this game? What are your thoughts on it? Leave any comments down below, and I'll see you soon for more Cartoon Hangout content. Thanks for watching, and take care.